This lecture is going to introduce you to the Arduino microcontroller platform. Now, those of you already familiar with it can probably just skip right through this lecture and move on to the next one. But those of you newer to the space, to the maker world, what have you, I wanted to go ahead and give you a background as to what it is, some of the development options you have available, including JavaScript of course, and then where you might be able to buy one if you don't already have one. Now, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on the introductory background information, as the meat of this course is really JavaScript development. But for those of you newer to the space, I at least wanted to introduce you to a new platform if you've not already heard of it, or at least give you some background information that you might not already have if you have heard of it. So what exactly is an Arduino? Well, it's an inexpensive, extensible prototyping platform. To break that definition down a little bit further, inexpensive meaning under $50 for a board. Now there are a bunch to choose from, which we'll see here soon, and there are also starter kits. The starter kits are probably going to be $80-$90 depending on where you get it from. So those will obviously go above $50, but you get more than just a board in those kits. By extensible, I mean that you can tack on to the core functionality of the base board that you purchase. Now that's done through what are called shields, and those can add networking capabilities such as Ethernet or Wi-Fi. They can add GPS, they can add accelerometers, they can add, you name it. There are a bunch of different add-on boards or shields that you can get to extend the core functionality. And then by prototyping, I mean that with the use of a solderless breadboard, some jumper wires, electronic components, and the header pins on the Arduino, you can quickly and easily build and scale circuit designs without having to fabricate them in a permanent or even a semi-permanent manner. We'll get into the designs here in a little bit in some of the demos to show you more of what I'm talking about. You've probably heard of the term open source software, but how about open source hardware? Well, that's exactly what the Arduino is. Back in 2005, when the first board was introduced, the intent of the platform was to teach students about electronics, circuitry, and programming who do not have a background in any of those areas. Being the targeted environment was more educational than anything, the Arduino team wanted to open up and publish the designs of their boards to allow other people or companies to build upon them to produce their own versions, hence the term open source hardware. Now, boards that are built by people outside of the official Arduino team will designate them as Arduino compatible, so you know they're not the official Arduino boards. Now, if you're up for a challenge, you can always go online and grab the specs if you'd like to try and build your own boards. That is way outside the scope of this course, so I'll leave that challenge up to you to explore on your own. Now, if you have already purchased an Arduino or are interested in the platform, you probably aren't thinking of using it without interacting with circuitry components of some sort. After all, that's pretty much why you buy them to begin with. As I touched on briefly during the prototyping definition, there are header pins you connect to, some digital, some analog, and you can use those to read input values from sensors, buttons, etc., as well as produce output to things like motors, LEDs, relays, servos, etc. Now we'll get into those a little bit more during the actual demos and upcoming lectures.